No Man's Sky is enjoying its biggest month in the last few years, coinciding with the launch of Starfield. Um, yeah, I think that it's kind of funny that a lot of people, again, we talked about this earlier when I found this article. Oh, cool, nice, Davey. Yo, word. Y'all have to let me know how you feel about it, man. So weirdly enough, Starfield feels like a game that I'm getting the impression people either are really enjoying it or people are just like done with it. They don't really have any care to play it. And I think what it is, what it really comes down to is that this is just a tried and true Bethesda game. It's nothing more and nothing less. It's the same thing we've always gotten from Bethesda. It's just wrapped in a space theme, you know? And that's not a bad thing, I don't think, but it's the normal Bethesda development recipe. I think what the impression I'm getting from a lot of people, and I haven't played the game, but a lot of what I'm hearing and seeing about the game is that it's like Fallout in space. And I think that for a lot of people, they were expecting like some kind of evolution here from Bethesda and what they were bringing to the table with this game. And after playing it, it's not. It's just good old Bethesda game. And so for those people that were expecting some kind of evolution and change in what Bethesda does and advancement in what Bethesda does, I think they're turned off. But for those people that are big fans of what Bethesda has traditionally done and they enjoy the Bethesda recipe, and I think those people are enjoying the game quite a bit. But I don't think there's a lot of middle ground. I haven't seen a whole lot of people that are like, oh yeah, it's you know, pretty good. It's a lot of people are like, oh, it's great, you know, or people are like, it sucks. For all those people, I think that are like, you know, the game's kind of balls for them. You know, they're not really enjoying it. I think that they are so adamant about, you know, they were so hyped about playing like a nice space game that they have turned their attention towards something like No Man's Sky. So again, I don't think that Starfield is probably a bad game by any means. I think it's just the same old thing from Bethesda, just got a little bit reskinned, you know? And for the people that aren't really enjoying it, they've turned their attention to something like No Man's Sky. So for Hello Games, this has probably been a pretty nice situation for them. And I don't know if it was all that expected or anything, but I'm sure that they're not mad about it, you know? So No Man's Sky is enjoying its biggest month in the last few years, coinciding with the launch of Starfield. No Man's Sky has been spitting out cosmic adventures for 7 years, and despite not meeting expectations at launch, not even close to it, has evolved into an incredibly varied sandbox thanks to Hello Games' fantastic post-launch support. With free expansion-sized updates coming out every year, it keeps beckoning players back. This month, according to Hello Games founder Sean Murray, it is actually its biggest in the last few years, despite competition from the long-awaited Starfield, another sandbox that ticks a lot of the same boxes. This is across. So from a tweet, 7 years in, and No Man's Sky is having its biggest month in the last few years across all platforms: PC, Xbox, Game Pass, Switch, PlayStation, Mac, and VR. Welcome to the community. This is across all platforms, says Murray, but on Steam alone, it has had its best month since September of 2021. One of its best months overall. It's quite the achievement for a game of this age. It's worth noting that its largest update of the year arrived in late August, followed by a new expedition at the start of this month, so both of these things are major contributing factors. A narrative is already forming that this boost is due to the disappointment Starfield players migrating over to No Man's Sky. There isn't much to back that up, aside from some anecdotal claims from Starfield's detractors. With the launch the scale of Starfield, it's common for games with similar features to see a bump as they benefit from the increased visibility. A lot of comparisons have been made between the two, so it's only natural that lapsed players will jump back in, while new ones decide to see what all the fuss is about. That said, there are undoubtedly some players who haven't gelled with Starfield who are now seeking their space kicks in No Man's Sky. I'm among them. While No Man's Sky doesn't have the type of handcrafted RPG story Starfield boasts, both games tout a multitude of worlds waiting to be explored. And when it comes to that aspect, No Man's Sky is hands down the stronger game. It's also had the benefit of 7 years of post-launch support, of course. Now, let's be fair. The amount of post-launch support they needed to get No Man's Sky to a point of giving consumers and gaming enthusiasts the content that was promised to them on release that was not there took them years. Right? So that should not be included in that. So it's not like they've had 7 years of just adding to what the game should have been in the first place. They had a chunk of those beginning years after launch to make the game what it should have been on launch. Right? So let's not forget that fact. While I will say that Hello Games, in my opinion, has done a pretty solid job of trying to redeem themselves by continuing to add more content, and add more content over what the game was supposed to be initially, and has not made anybody pay anything more than the base price of the game, they should not get any kind of kudos or accolades or anything like that for the time they had to spend in making the game become what it should have been on launch in the first place. So let's be very clear about that. But they have had a lot of time as opposed to work on the game and add content to the game, as opposed to what Starfield has had as it's a new release. And I have said this about Starfield. There are a lot of people that I've talked to that have played the game that and reviews I've read even that have talked about how the world feels kind of bleak. And I know that Bethesda, even before release, had talked about they wanted a more realistic experience of space exploration, where like 9 out of 10 planets you go to don't harbor life, right? That's still a turnoff for game players. It feels very bleak. It feels very dry and bland, I think, for a lot of game players. Now, not all is lost on that front. You talk about a game like No Man's Sky that's had 7 years to turn into what it is now, as opposed to Starfield that is just released, and they're going to have years to come, which allows Bethesda to continue to evolve the game into hopefully what us gamers would rather see it be. You know what I mean? Listen to the community and incorporate some of that overall feedback that most people are providing of what they would like to see the game be, as well as that game's going to have mod support, right? And you know that modders are going to do a great job with the planets that don't have anything on them. That's a lot of real estate to use for modders to play with and develop and get cool things going with. So I have no doubt that Starfield is going to turn into more than just what it is now, right? Continuing the article, so many of the things that I enjoy about No Man's Sky, from the flexible base building to the vehicles to the fleets did not exist at launch, while the sandbox exploration of its galaxy has always been better than what Starfield offers. If we compare both games at launch, I've got to admit that Starfield is overall in a better position. Absolutely. What this really shows is that reassuringly, space is big enough for more than one massive cosmic sandbox. Starfield might be the biggest launch of the year, a game that every site, including PCG, is covering extensively every day. But that doesn't mean there aren't interesting things happening in other games or lots of players still enjoying them. Yep. So I do think that there probably benefiting greatly from the people that haven't really enjoyed Starfield so far. But again, I think Starfield, it's very early for Starfield. They have a lot of bake-in time coming their way for changes, updates, content, to be added. Plus, the mod support is going to be a huge thing for that game. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But I think this has been a great thing for Hello Games. I don't think anybody's going to deny that.